IVM.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories, India's very own travel podcast, where each week we share the journey of travelers in their own words and relive their experiences with you, our listeners.
Hi guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories. Before we get on with today's episode, a quick shout out to Akash Gupta and Sai Srihari for writing in to us. We always appreciate the effort you guys take to write to us. Thank you. Also, a quick shout out to one of our fellow bloggers, Elita, also known as the Nomadic Thunker, for the brilliant expressive writing workshops that she does. We recently had a chance to be a part of one of her workshops and had an absolute blast. Make sure to check out the schedule for our next workshop. We highly recommend it. Links are in the show notes. As for today's episode, we speak to Srikanth from Hyderabad, who blogs under the handle traveldiaries.vacations. So buckle up and sit back as we find out where Srikanth is taking us to today. Srikanth, thank you so much for joining us on the Musafir Stories and welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Srikanth.
Hey, hi, Faiza. Nice meeting you guys today evening.
It's the same, and we are super excited to talk to you. I don't know, somehow at least Hyderabad feels almost home. So,
So just as a little bit of a background is that Faiza's family is actually from Bidar. That's a town in North Karnataka, which also happens to be close to Hyderabad. So
yeah, it has like a big Hyderabad influence. So a lot of my dad's relatives are in Hyderabad, including my own uncle. So Hyderabad is like almost second home.
Yeah. Bidar is actually good for its fort and the black bug.
Yes, the Kali Gadi. Yes.
Awesome. So that was about us. But Srikanth, before we jump into the conversation about the place, why don't you tell us a little bit more about you?
Yeah, sure. This is Srikanth here. Hi, guys. And I'm a full-time learning professional. That's my 9-to-5 job. And that's something which does not stop me from traveling. And this is something which is kind of a bug bit me roughly around 2016 with my first trip to Ooty. And that's when I recently purchased a Duster as well. And having a new vehicle, you tend to hit the road more often. And since then, having hit the road to Ooty, I was thinking as to how do I capture my memories. I started off small. I did not have a website at that point in time. So I started off by writing about my travelogue to Ooty on Lonely Planet's newly launched app at that point in time. And that's when it started off. And since then, I'm traveling roughly 2 years down the lane, I could say, 2.5 years of travel. And I've clocked close to around 40,000 kilometers in these 2 years.
Wonderful. So who's your partner?
Partner, most of the cases, is my wife and my son.
Wonderful.
If you're listening to someone who wants to sit in the front and be that particular person who is a navigator for me, then it is my son. And there's a lot of fight that happens between my wife and my son on who occupies the seat beside me. So.
Okay.
Oh, wonderful.
That's wonderful. And just as a quick reference to our listeners, Srikanth also happens to be the chapter leader for Road Trippers Club Hyderabad chapter. We covered the Road Trippers Club in one of our previous episodes, and we had the wonderful folks Vidit and Deepak come talk to us as well. So Srikanth is a part of a bigger family. Faz and I are a part of the Bangalore chapter, and Srikanth heads the Hyderabad chapter. So that's a little bit of a insight for you guys into what Srikanth does. Now, Srikanth, what we usually do with the Musafir Stories, as you know, is we usually request our guests to take us on a journey, on a trip with them. So with that in mind, where are you taking us to today?
So I'm planning to take you guys a wonderful place. It is a place called Gandikota.
Right.
I would not want to refer it as a Grand Canyon of India because it has its own importance, and I don't want to compare it to an international destination there.
Thank you so much for saying that. A lot of people say that, and in my mind, I completely disagree with them. So yes, thank you.
So again, Gandikota is a place that falls in Rayalaseema region of Andhra Pradesh. It has importance there. When you call Rayalaseema, and we locals who have their mother tongue as Telugu, we call it as Analasema, which if I need to translate it, would be translating into the land of germs.
Yes,
Okay.
perfect. And which is the other destination? I'm sorry, I just interrupted you in Gandikota and.
Gandikota is the first destination that we have been to, and while returning back from Gandikota, we happened to stop at Belum Caves.
Okay.
It has its own importance there with respect to the longest caves in India, the second longest, in fact, the first one being in the northeast in Meghalaya.
Right. And it's a complete marvel of nature as well. So yes, we are all yours.
Yeah, we're very excited because both of these are, as you said, they have their own rightful place, right? Beautiful marvels of the nature. And we ourselves had a chance to visit these places. So we are looking forward to sharing our insights as well as we go through this journey with you and share it with our listeners. So without much ado, let's jump into the thick of things, right? When did you do this trip?
So, Saif, we did this trip in September of 2018. We started off by planning a part of the adventure group as well as a road trippers club initiative. And then we planned this trip along with colleagues and friends.
Is that a good time to visit Srikanth? I know because a lot of the parts of Andhra Pradesh and South India in general tend to get hot during the summers, but September is a good time to visit?
There is one area that I would want to talk about from a region standpoint. So this is more of those rocky regions in Andhra Pradesh. Unless you are leaning on towards November, December, that's when you'll have a slight a cool breeze coming your way. Else it is very hot during the daytime, but it tends to get cooler in the evenings.
Okay. And in terms of the length of the trip, right, it seems like a weekend trip that you have done. Do you suggest this is an optimum amount of time to cover the places in and around Gandikota and Belum, or in hindsight, would you say maybe a day or two more would have been sufficient?
If you're just looking at covering just the Gandikota piece and Belum Caves, 2 days should be sufficient. You need to start early, roughly around 6 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday.
Okay.
You should be back in Hyderabad by around 8, 9-ish on a Sunday evening, if it is just these two places that you're looking at covering.
Okay, wonderful. Cool. So let's get started then in terms of where you were headed off from. You started from Hyderabad, you said, right?
Yes. So we started off planning this trip roughly around 2-3 weeks before the actual travel date. We used Road Trippers Club website as well to a certain extent to plan our trip, to brand it more from a Road Trippers Club Hyderabad chapter as well as the adventure club that we are a part of. And then we started using it for RSVP and any of the discussions that we would want to have. Now, the best part is we had a good quorum, roughly around 25 of our friends and colleagues along with their families in around 5 cars. Okay. All planning done. We procured tents, but we believe in camping when we go out. We started off on Saturday at around 6 in the morning. We met at a common place on the Outer Ring Road, the entrance of the Outer Ring Road in Hyderabad. So that's where it all started. The back-end planning, everything I was taking care of with some amount of help from a few colleagues of mine. And they were helping me out check out the route and also look at the logistics that we might need, what that we need to carry, because we need to focus that we are going to camp. So we need to carry a lot of essentials that we would be needing during the trip.
Sure. So in terms of permissions and stuff, do you need anything of that sort, or you're free to camp wherever you want to?
So there is a catch here. We were about to fall into a trap in Gandikota. Now, luck was our way, so we tried escaping it to a certain extent. But you're free to camp. There is a dedicated place just beside the gorge, close to the fort there, where you can camp free of cost. You don't need to pay anyone anything. You just need to go there, pitch your tent, and then you relax looking at the stars and the wonderful view. The catch or the challenge that I was mentioning about is if you're unaware about this place and then you start approaching the locals or the only resort that's there, then there is a possibility that you might get into some amount of financial loss, because they would try charging a lump sum amount from you, which ideally is not required.
Yep, because that's why I want to call this out, that people will try to thug you and they'll try to scam you if especially if they find out that you're from outside of town, etc. They might try to take advantage of that. So people, please do keep that in mind. If you're planning a trip, make sure you try and have at least some idea as to where you could camp by yourself, and you don't really have to shell out money just to pitch a tent. right? But having said that, make sure that you carry the appropriate equipment. That way you don't have to rely on others, right, to like the resorts and things around. There's not too many, but whoever, right, they might try to charge you for that. So it's best to carry your own equipment, and it's absolutely free of cost to pitch there. And now before we kind of get into more details as to what are the things you saw, just for the uninitiated and people who are still thinking, because we didn't quite speak a lot about Gandikota, right? Yeah, because we both of us have been there, so I don't want to assume that everybody will know, because technically speaking, it's still a little underrated, right? Not many people, if you move outside of, say, South India, not many people know about this, even though this is such a marvelous, as far as I mentioned, a marvel of nature, right? So basically, Gandikota is a gorge beside the Pennar River, right, Srikanth?
Yes, just beside the Pennar River, and also one area that I would like to highlight, specific to Gandikota and anything and everything that you could find there, the ruins and also buildings, right. All of that is made of sand right. and limestone. So that's something which stands out, and people who like sculptures and art, they would definitely be in for a wow moment when they go there.
Exactly. Wonderful. And yeah, it lies in Andhra Pradesh, because some people might now get confused between Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, where does it lie? But this lies in Andhra Pradesh, and the region, like Srikanth referred to earlier, is usually referred to as Rayalaseema, you said, right?
Yes, it's part of Rayalaseema.
Correct. So, awesome. Now, tell us a little bit more. Now, you've started off early from Hyderabad. You've had your pit stops and everything. And what time did you arrive at Gandikota?
So we started roughly around 6:30, as I've already mentioned, and we reached Gandikota around 2:30 in the afternoon with some decent pit stops for breakfast as well as tea on the way. And definitely when you're on travel and on a road trip, you tend to stop for pictures as well as you're on the highway. So that not given a least priority. So we roughly took around 6 hours of travel plus an hour or two of stopping here and there.
So still that way, it's not too much. And in terms of your stay, where were you guys staying? I know you camped by the gorge, but did you also have like places booked for you?
No, so we did not book anything. Okay. What we did was we picked our tents. I hired them in Hyderabad from a common friend that we have, who rents out the tents. But we did not book anything. The best part is there is a Haritha resort there. Now they also have common washroom and toilets. Which can be used by people who are not staying at Haritha as well. So that is something which we optimally utilized.
Interesting. Because as far as I remember, that's the only Haritha resort, which is the official Andhra Pradesh tourism resort, right? That's pretty much the only resort or the stay option you have while in Gandikota, right? So if you're not planning to pitch a tent, make sure you make appropriate reservations, because you can't just turn up there and expect to find a room, because it doesn't have a whole lot of rooms as well, right?
And quite difficult to book as well, because I remember when we were trying to look for places, first of all, I mean, we found Haritha was the only place, and the bookings were done for almost like 2 months ahead. Yeah. So quite difficult in that aspect. So if anybody who's planning, make sure if you're planning on staying in Haritha, the plans are concrete.
Yeah, so the number of rooms limited there, Saif. Yeah. So you have roughly 6 to 8 cottages and a couple of dormitories there. Okay. That's it. So you need to plan probably a month or two is what in advance you need to plan if you want to stay in a hotel. Now there is a disadvantage there. Now the disadvantage is the property is decent, but it's slightly far off from any of those views that you would want to probably get up on a morning. Right. And that's something which could be the only challenge there.
Right. Awesome. So now you're freshened up and everything at Haritha. What did you guys have planned in mind?
So we had our lunch there, and post our lunch, we wanted to explore the place. Okay. Now, when you trust Google, at times you land up at the place that you need to land. But there are also instances where you tend to get lost while searching for the place that you need to take.
You have arrived at your destination.
So we ended up landing at roughly 6 kilometers away from Gandikota Fort, and we passed by Gandikota Fort.
Okay.
And we ended up landing near windmills, which are partly owned by Hindustan Petroleum, if I'm not really wrong.
Okay.
And then we wanted to explore the place because we were not used to watching windmills so close. So we ended up doing some amount of off-roading there among the couple of SUVs that we had. And then watching windmills at a very close distance. And then we came back in an hour's time, realizing the mistake that we did, that we passed by everything that we need to be looking out.
I think you needed to make a right?
Yeah, we forgot taking the Aage se right wala option there.
Yeah, good plug. Yeah, but go on. So you spent some time off-roading at then like going by the windmills, and then you made your way back to the fort?
Yeah, so we made our way back to the fort, and then we entered the fort, and we were awestruck as from the moment that we entered the fort there, the narrow lanes and the doors that were welcoming us at Gandikota, it was really mesmerizing for us. And we were like, the effort that we have taken traveling all the way from morning and reaching that place, we felt it paid off.
Yeah.
We further continued into the fort. You'll have a couple of doors that you need to, and then you need to honk because it's a very narrow path, and then there could be a possibility of a few vehicles in the opposite direction.
Right.
And you would not have a place to maneuver. So you go further in, and then near the Jama Masjid or the Jama Mosque, there is a lot of place that is carved out for parking your vehicles there.
Right.
So you go there, park your vehicles. Everything that you need to see in Gandikota to a large extent is there in the vicinity of you parking your vehicles.
Yeah, and then just as a little bit of a backstory, right? So Gandikota is it's the fort is actually like a fort city, right? So as you pass through the gateways and everything, you pass by a few houses also where people still live, right?
Yes.
So there's that, and once you pass all of that, you end up near the Jama Mosque or the Jama Masjid that Srikanth is referring to. And as a little bit of a background, the fort in itself, right? The fort in the city, I think it has its origins back in 1123, I think was when it was first built. But over time, it has been ruled by different rulers. And I believe even some rulers associated to, say, the Chalukyas and then people from the Vijayanagara Empire. I think this might be the same one that ruled parts of Karnataka as well. And eventually the rulers of the Delhi Sultanate, etc., ruled it for a little bit. And surprisingly, actually, Faiza, I was a little surprised that Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan also apparently ruled this place for a little bit, maybe not too long, but they were there for a little bit before it was passed over to the Nawabs of Hyderabad, and finally the British took over, right? So that way, in terms of the richness of the culture and history and even the diversity, right? It's been ruled by like many different rulers and kingdoms. That also kind of shows in the fort, right? In terms of the monuments it has.
Yeah, and also one interesting fact here is the Jama Masjid that we just spoke about, parking our vehicles outside. That was in fact built by the Mughals. The structure is now getting renovated. They're trying to restore and ensure that the structure is intact there. So there are renovation works going on as we visited this place as well.
Okay, wonderful. Because I completely agree to that point. It does have the feel of that Islamic architecture also, right? The Mughal architecture, if you may. That is kind of reflected in the Jama Masjid as well. It has two beautiful minarets, the longer ones, and there's a number of smaller ones too. So it was a really nice place, and as Srikanth mentioned, reminds you of other Mughal monuments as well. It's very similar to them in style. But I agree to the point about the renovation, right? Because when we visited it, there was some parts of it were like close to being dilapidated, but otherwise, more than that, I think it was the vandalism that was showing more, especially in the inner part of the main hall, right? The prayer hall and stuff like that. There was a lot of signs of vandalism, so I'm glad that it's being renovated, but I only hope that they're doing a good job at it, because sometimes people tend to overdo these things, right? Things like the renovations and stuff, and it loses the original charm and the beauty that the monument had.
Yeah, and also one more point, Saif, that I've recently read. a few days back is the Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh and the AP Tourism is exercising special interest in renovating and restoring the history of Gandikota, and they are looking at having this as a historical site and probably have some amount of UNESCO involvement as well. So that's something which they're planning and is on the cards at this point. The discussions are on.
Wonderful. I think that's really good news that way. I think the amount of resources and the energy that's spent on preservation, it'll go up, and I hope it does go up, because if it does become a UNESCO World Heritage Site, it'll attract a lot more in terms of attention of tourists and tourism, etc. Right? So I hope they do a good job at conserving and preserving this. So let us speak a little more about the other monuments also within the vicinity of the fort complex. Srikanth, if you want to touch about that.
Sure, definitely. And there is this place as you enter and cross the Jama Masjid. We were shocked to see a Charminar there. We were only relating to Charminar in Hyderabad, and then we were surprised to find a Charminar there as well. It's slightly smaller in size, but the way it is built, it almost reflects like the Charminar that's there in Hyderabad, and it has the minarets that we have back in Hyderabad. And one interesting fact again about it is it's built pure of limestone, and that's something which stands out as well.
Yeah, true. Even we were in for a little bit of a shocker, and I think even the board read that it says Charminar, and we were like,
yes.
Weren't we supposed to see that in Hyderabad? A mini Charminar of sorts, right?
It's a mini Charminar of sorts,
much smaller. Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. And now, while these are the two more, say, Mughal or Islamic type of monuments within the complex, there's also a couple of temples within the complex that are remaining, right? Because I believe there are many more temples within the complex, but now we see at least two of them remaining, which Srikanth, you might want to touch upon.
Yeah, so we had the opportunity of going to one place, which is the Ranganatha Swami temple.
Okay.
Now, when you talk about a temple, the first thing that comes to your mind is the deity or the idol that's there and worshipped. Unfortunately, as we have been talking about depletion and also not well managed or things on those lines, we could not find an idol there. But what really caught our attention, and we were still finding it as a good way to look at, is the great sculptures and also the art that was still intact. When you look at the roofs or the different sculptures that were there still were there, and we were able to at least feel good about it. And that was something which when you have a look and then you understand art to a certain extent, then you could understand the seriousness and also the precision with which they were constructed, the pillars or the sculptures on those pillars, and also the roof, the art that was carved onto the roof. And that's something which is really marvelous. The only missing point was deity or the idol, probably that was worshipped there in the ages that it was built.
And also there is this, like we referred previously to the Jama Mosque and the Charminar, that they had a lot of Mughal influence, right? This one, I felt it had a little bit of, say, the Vijayanagara kingdom's influence, right? In terms of the architecture, it reminded me of the temples of Hampi. It looked similar in architecture. So that's something that is noteworthy as well. And the other temple as well within the vicinity, which is the Madhavaraya temple, I believe. That's also not too far away. And these temples, I think it's probably red granite or something like that that's been used to build these. They look very different. They stand out, and very beautifully made, beautiful architecture, and typical Dravidian style architecture. And I believe they've been built around the 15th or the 16th century. So I couldn't quite get more information about this. But if somebody was thinking that the Gandikota is just about the gorge and the beautiful views, etc., there's much more in terms of the monuments within the fort complex, right?
Yeah, you are absolutely right, Saif. So now there is also a possibility of you going down until, to a certain extent, the Pennar River there. For that, you need to climb down by the fort wall that is still there to a certain extent, and then you can go until a certain place close to the Pennar River, way below the gorge.
Okay, so basically you can get down in the valley, you're saying, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
That would be a bit of a trek, I would say, to a certain extent, because the path is not clear. And there was a road that was there when the fort was in full glory. But as the time passed, the bushes and also the rocks, they formed a blockade to the path there. And then you need to be very careful. And when you're coming back up, you should be double careful because there is a high chance of you slipping from the rocks and then falling and hurting yourself. So that's one area that we need to be careful about.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. And even before one plans on going down on a trek to the valley, like by the river, right? I think there are some great viewpoints from very close to the temples and the mosque, right? It's not too far away, maybe about 500 meters or so. Well, if you just go by, you get beautiful view of the river and the gorge, and especially during the sunset. I think it's a great time to be there during the sunset and enjoy the stunning views, because I think this is why people go and relate this to the Grand Canyon and the Colorado River, right? It looks a little similar, and that's why people keep touching upon that. But in all sincerity, this is as stunning as the Grand Canyon. It deserves its own place. We spent some time there too. I hope you guys got to enjoy the good views too, Srikanth.
Exactly, Saif. And just one more point there. It's not just the sunsets. The sunrise on any given day, on a clear day, could be equally interesting and mesmerizing, I would say. Sunsets on the gorge inside the Gandikota fort. Now, as you come out of the Gandikota fort towards the camping area, the moment you get up in the morning, roughly around 5:45, 6-ish, whenever the sunrise is, you open your tent and then you peep out. You'll be thrilled to find a lovely sun, orange sun smiling back at you. And that's something which lifts up your spirit, and then you are full active and and with all energy out there.
Wonderful. And I think that too makes camping the night out there worthwhile, right?
Yes.
Because if you're in your Haritha resort, I don't think you'll have a view of this wonderful sight.
No, you would not. You should definitely watch sunset from the gorge and also camp by the gorge outside the Gandikota fort. You would probably be mesmerized. You would go back with wonderful memories. And it's not just the sunrise or the sunset. The moment you have your dinner or a snack in the evening, and then as the sun sets and then you have the night sky lit up, you would be mesmerized with the stars that probably would be coming your way in the night. And then we were awake till 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the night. We were gossiping. We were looking at the stars. There were no lights around. We were trying to enjoy the nature in its true glory there. So wonderful.
I'm sure, especially for us city dwellers, right? Spending a night under the stars and camping, especially, would have been like a memorable experience. So I think the whole package in itself, if I may, right from the beautiful monuments within the fort complex to the beautiful views of the gorge and the river, to the camping experience, the sunset and the sunrise. I think it's a wholesome package, both in terms of people who are, say, nature lovers, as well as people who appreciate art and history and architecture a lot more, right? So it's the best of both worlds for everybody. And after having spent some time here, like you spent the night here and you got a beautiful view of the sunrise as well the following morning, what time did you head off from Gandikota?
We got up at around 6, as I've already shared. More from a sunrise standpoint, there were a few guys who were tired and then were sleeping. Most of them got up by 7. And then we packed our tents and then we headed back to Haritha. And we had our freshing up of sorts in the morning, and then we had our breakfast, and then we headed to another wonderful place in Andhra Pradesh, very close by to Gandikota, which is Belum Caves.
Awesome. The distance or the time taken, how much of a ride is this?
So from Gandikota, the roads are really beautiful. You would be having some really mesmerizing views as you head towards Belum Caves. And the time from Gandikota to Belum should not take anywhere beyond 75 to 90 minutes on a given day.
Okay, wonderful. So there by noon, I would assume, right?
Yeah. We roughly started at 9:50, 9:30, and then we were there by around 11-ish.
Okay, wonderful. So before we start talking more about the Belum Caves, Srikanth, you want to give a little bit of a quick background about that as well? You did mention that these are the second largest cave complex of sorts within India, right?
Yeah. One more area that I would like to highlight for people who want to visit Belum Caves is it roughly takes around 1.5 to 2 hours to completely cover the Belum Caves and see every nook and corner which is open to public in Belum Caves there.
Yeah.
Now, with a caution there, and the caution is be ready to sweat it out. And the reason why I say that is you're going way deep, as deep as 150 meters below the ground level.
Yeah.
So that's something which you should be prepared for. The best part is AP government or the Archaeological Survey of India and also the AP Tourism. They're making all efforts to ensure that you get fresh air out there. So there are
air shafts,
air circulations and air shots and blowers at periodic places. And then you should be decently standing under those for some time.
Sure. Especially, we already mentioned how hot Andhra Pradesh and Telangana can
Generally,
get, right? And this is much, much hotter while you go down. So, and even in terms of you mentioned the depth, it's about 150 meters at the deepest point. It's about that much below the ground level. And in terms of length, it's over 3 kilometers long, right? Srikanth?
Yeah, over 3 kilometers long, and we have this habit of talking about feet, right? Because of the Himalayas and all those things. So you are actually looking at 10,500 or 600 feet of length of Belum Cave that you are looking at covering by foot.
Wow. And I think apart from even the temperature that increases there, the air also thins down. So at least I personally, when we started off and we were right there at the main hall, for some 10-15 minutes, I did have difficulty breathing, but then eventually it got better. So just a caution out to all the people out there, just be careful and keep your
for somebody who's claustrophobic, I don't think this will be the best idea.
Right.
Having said that, it's not too difficult. This is definitely doable.
I think it just takes like a minute to get used to it. More than a minute for me, but once you're prepared, I think it's okay. Yeah.
And then before we even get into the caves, I would also like to call out the huge statue that's there at the entrance, right, Srikanth?
Yeah, so as you get in, there is a Buddha statue there, Saif, and that's something which is pure white, and you stand there and then you are mesmerized watching the Buddha statue there. You spend some time there, probably take a few clicks, and then you head over to the parking area. The temperatures would be really worse. When we visited there, we were constantly monitoring. Now, the cars that we are getting, right, you get these temperatures inbuilt. So you know what the outside temperature looks like. We experienced the heat that you tend to experience in summers in September, I would say, and which was roughly around 45 degrees Celsius. So that was something which we were shocked.
And maybe just a shout out for all the people, at least before I went ahead and Googled about it. Belum Cave isn't something that is a hill that has caves. You have to go really deep down and
you have to you have to descend downwards. It's not in the hills.
Yeah, underground.
It's
an underground cave.
It's an underground cave network, and but I would also like to give a shout out to the AP Tourism Department. It's been fairly well maintained, and there is the facility of guides as well for somebody looking to find out more in terms of the formations and the different parts of the caves as well, because as I said, right, it's a pretty long stretch of caves that is there. So if you're just by yourself, you won't get lost, but you might miss out on some of the information that
a lot of information because
it's well lit also, right? There's lighting from place to place, right, Srikanth?
Yes. So there is lighting from place to place, and the air shoots are also there. There could be places where some work is going on, and there could be slush and mud out there. So that's the only area for people to watch out for, because they tend to slip as the work goes on, and that's the only area to watch out for.
And then also just describe to listeners, Srikanth, we'll try to pitch in as well wherever we can. But as you enter the caves, right, what are the kinds of things you're seeing around you, etc.? What are the types of formations?
Yeah, once you descend down the stairs.
Why don't you give a little bit of a flavor of that too for our listeners?
Sure. So I'll probably start off with you entering the cave. The first logical thing that you tend to do is buy your ticket. The ticket costs roughly around 75 rupees, and then you are ushered in to the Belum Caves there. there are stairs that you need to go down. And as you enter there, you will probably find a few places that you would want to have a look at. The first thing that your attention draws to is something we call Pilidwaram. Pilidwaram is something is in the shape of a cat, kind of an entrance for you. You would also tend to look at the saint bed. It's in the form of a bed where the saints used to probably relax, and that's the reason the name is derived from there. It's a rock, a single rock that is cut in the form of a bed there. So that is the second thing that you tend to notice as you enter into Belum caves. And there are a few more areas that you would probably want to visit as you go deeper into Belum caves. One is a meditation hall, which is very peaceful in nature. You tend to spend some time there in the meditation hall, and then you further go on. There is a place which is in the form of a banyan tree,
right.
And that is something which will again catch your attention as you go into Belum caves.
Yep.
Now, there is one more area which is more of a musical chamber, which is inside the Belum caves as you go inside there. The markings for you to go from one chamber or one place to the other are made by the authorities there, so that you know where is the entrance in and where is the exit, right. And how is that you need to go there. There are also areas where you have a chamber which is named as Kotilingalu chamber. Now, my understanding is that you have rock formations in the form of Shivalingas, right. Not the full-blown Shivalingas there, but cones or areas which tend to look like Shivalingas there. And that is something which also would be an area that you would want to not miss there.
Yep.
As you go in further deep into Belum Cave, there is a place which takes you to the deepest point, which is roughly around 150-151 meters, goes by the name Patala Ganga. That is a place where you have water droplets coming in from the rocks itself, and there is a small pond, kind of a very small pond. You need to bend and then go there. Yep. I don't think more than 2 to 3 people can fit in at one point in time inside. But there is one area that I would probably caution people who are going into Belum Caves, particularly to Patala Ganga. Don't step into the water there. It might look that it's very small, but the depth is very deep is what we were told as we explored that place there. So that's one area that I would want to highlight and caution people there.
That's true. Because see, overall when you see the cave formation also, the cave was formed because of a river, the underground river thousands of years ago. So there are deep wells that do exist within the cave, and Patal Ganga is one of them. There's also, some people even say that the water in Patal Ganga is so deep that it even connects to one of the wells that is almost 2 kilometers away from Belum. The water might look tiny, but then it runs deep down.
It might look shallow, but this is what our guide said as well, that it's very deep, and please don't be foolish and try stupid things.
Yeah, and also, Saif, one thing that I would want to highlight probably is I'm also too tall. So most of the places that I've been to in Belum Caves, I had to actually literally bend and walk and ensure that my head was safe and avoid of any injuries there. So that's something which was a one-off a walk, I would say, so deep. So these are some of the places that I would say, at least from a name standpoint, which caught my attention. Now, Belum Caves is not just that. There are a lot of formations, and you tend to bump into different structures or formations from a Belum Cave standpoint. They are formed by probably fresh water and also some amount of stones that these areas were exposed to. It's called Belum Guhalu from a Telugu standpoint there. These caves were carved out of limestone deposits. And it's not just Belum Caves that is there in that area. There are a lot of caves that are well known in those areas. So there's something which was also occupied by monks from the Jain and the Buddhist roughly 2,000-3,000 years ago. There is something which is still being excavated, and when we checked, they said that there are a few more areas that they're trying to do the deep excavation and also identify much more in-depth aspects that come out of Belum Caves there. So it's not just that that you see there when you go to Belum Caves. There is a lot that's there that is being explored and brought out on a day-to-day basis there.
Definitely, and it was a packed weekend. It looks like a packed weekend, and we thank you so much, Srikanth, for letting us be with your family and with colleagues and taking us on this trip. We enjoyed every bit of it, and is very underrated. As I said at the beginning, it places that we discussed during the itinerary, they're pretty underrated of sorts, and we're glad that we could sample them. And Srikanth, now why don't you go ahead and tell us how people can follow, say about your future trips, your future travels, and all the adventure that you get into.
Definitely. So first of all, thanks, Saif and Faiza, for listening to my story. If you're looking at traveling through my eyes to places that I go, now I have Insta and Twitter handles that I regularly keep my travel posted on. Instagram at Travel with Srikanth. That's my handle on Instagram. On Twitter, I go by the name Travel with Sri. Travel with Srikanth could be the hashtag that I'll be using both in Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter out there. So that's something which I go by. And I write my blogs on travel diaries.vacations. That's where I pen my stories, so that later point in time when my son grows older, he can read the stories and then cherish and remind himself of the trips that he has been to with his parents.
That's such a beautiful thought, and we wish you all the best to you, your family, for many more such fun-filled trips, such fun-filled vacations, and we enjoyed every bit of this, Srikanth. Thank you so much.
Great talking to you, Saif.
Absolutely, likewise.
Same here, Srikanth. Thank you so much for being a part of the Musafir Stories.
That was yet another great episode of the Musafir Stories. If you guys like the show, please subscribe to us on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, Audioboom, Savan, Pocket Casts, Castbox, Stitcher, or any other podcasting app available on iOS or Android. Please do leave us a review on iTunes. It goes a long way in the show's discoverability. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We go by the handle The Musafir Stories. Or, if it suits you, you could email us at themusafirstories@gmail.com or visit our website at www.themusafirstories.com for more information. All of these links will be made available in the show notes section of each episode. So here's to more traveling, sharing, and inspiring. Stay tuned for our next episode. Until then, happy travels and goodbye.